All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into Good Vibes, Good Life. It's a title you see everywhere, right? But what most people don't know is the story behind it, how its author went from a truly traumatic childhood to living a life of purpose. Okay, just take that in for a second. Blood all over the staircase, on the walls. I mean, wow. This is definitely not what you expect when you crack open a book about, good vibes. But this single terrifying memory, it's where the whole story begins.
And yeah, that scene, that was the childhood of Vex King, the author of this massive bestseller. This wasn't some nightmare he had, this was his actual reality as a little kid just 4 years old, living in a housing shelter. His world was shaped by fear and violence.
So that just begs the question, right? How on earth do you go from a life completely soaked in fear, to a life filled with purpose and meaning? I mean, seriously, how do you even begin to make that kind of jump?
Well, Vex King's answer is what this whole explainer is about. And it's a principle that's way more powerful than just, slapping a smile on and thinking positive thoughts. It's a really subtle shift, but it's a shift that literally changed everything for him.
So let's get into it. Section 1. Beyond positive thinking.
Okay, so, like a lot of us, Vex King's first dip into self-help was through the law of attraction. You know the one. He was in university, totally broke, felt like he was going nowhere, just completely hopeless. And then he finds The Secret and thinks, okay, what have I got to lose? He decides to really try out this core idea. What you think about, you attract.
So he gives it a shot. He focuses all his energy, all his thoughts, on getting enough cash for a holiday with his friends that he desperately needed. And then, get this, a few weeks later, bam, a check shows up out of nowhere from the tax office for £800. It actually worked. He got his holiday, and just like that, he was all in, a total believer.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This is where the story gets really interesting. Because what happens when just thinking positive stuff isn't enough? What do you do when your real-life, deep-down problems don't just magically disappear? When reality decides to punch you right in the gut?
For him, that moment came in his final year of university. A massive group project just completely fell apart. And no matter how hard he tried to stay optimistic, he was just drowning in rage and despair. He was absolutely convinced he was going to fail. And that's when it hit him. Positive thinking, it wasn't the whole picture. There was a huge, crucial piece of the puzzle missing.
So, his hunt for that missing piece is what led him to the book's big aha moment. This is the core idea. Section 2, the law of vibration. Here's the big reveal. King realized the universe doesn't really care about your thoughts. Nope, it responds to your vibration, your overall energy. And what creates that vibration? Your feelings. You could say your emotions are the real language the universe understands.
And this is such a critical difference. So let's break it down. The law of attraction, that's all about the mind. It's about what you're thinking. But the law of vibration, that's all about the heart. It's about what you genuinely feel. It's the huge difference between just wanting something and actually truly feeling like you're worthy and ready for it.
King uses a great analogy for this. Tuning forks. Imagine you have 2 of them. You strike one, and it starts humming, right? Well, the second fork, without anyone touching it, will start humming too, but only if it's tuned to the exact same frequency. And that's us. We're constantly attracting people and situations that are tuned to the same frequency as our feelings.
Okay, so that's the big idea. It makes sense, right? But the real question is, how do we actually do it? How do we change our frequency? Well, that takes us right into Section 3, raising your vibration. Now, King lays out a bunch of ways to do this, but we're going to focus on 3 super practical steps you can start using today to deliberately raise your own energy. They are expressing gratitude, practicing self-love, and choosing your circle.
First up, gratitude. You've probably heard this before, but King puts it perfectly. The more you count your blessings, the more blessings you'll have to count. And look, this isn't about pretending bad stuff doesn't exist. It's about training your brain like a muscle to actively look for and feel the good stuff. That feeling is what raises your vibration and, yep, brings more good things your way.
Next, let's talk about self-love. King has a really great take on this. It's not just about, accepting yourself and that's it. It's a balance. It's about accepting yourself exactly as you are right now, flaws and all, while also knowing you deserve better, and then putting in the work to get there. It's active, not passive.
Okay, so once you're in that high vibe state, once your feelings are aligned, then you bring your mind back into the game. And that combination, that's where the real magic happens. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, creating your reality.
So think of this like a two-step recipe. Step 1, get your vibration high. Get into that good feeling state. Then, Step 2, you aim that powerful energy. You do that by challenging your old limiting beliefs, getting super clear on what you want, visualizing your goals, and, this is the big one, taking actual consistent action out in the real world.
But what about when things don't go to plan? Because let's be real, they often don't. This is where King offers a game-changing reframe. A rejection? That's not a no, it's just a redirection pointing you towards something even better. A setback? That's not a failure. It's just a chance to tweak your plan. It's all just part of the process, part of the flow.
And this leads to what might be the most powerful idea in the entire book. Think about your own life for a second. What if all the pain, all the struggles you've been through, what if none of it was random? What if your pain actually had a purpose? Vex King's point is that our struggles are what forge us. They would give us the exact strength, wisdom, and compassion we need to step into our true purpose. It's like life is preparing us. And the very first step on that entire journey is learning to turn all that kindness and compassion inward. So I want to leave you with this one last question from the book and really let it sink in. If I asked you to name all the things that you love, how long would it take for you to name yourself?